What could compromise that? And is there a situation that you see that could, I guess, the state get its fingers involved in Bitcoin and we see more capital controls, et cetera?
No, I don't think that's really going to be the case, because as was talked about, Bitcoin separates state from money, and the state has no ability to get into Bitcoin or disrupt Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is unconfiscatable, it's uncensorable, and it's going to really disintermediate the state. I think we're going to see now the beginning of the dissolution of this nation state as a model. We're going to see one of the major central banks go under in 2021. I think the central bank model is going to also go the way of the horse and buggy. And so they don't really have any way to attack Bitcoin. There's a couple of ways, theoretically, that Bitcoin could be challenged. One would be to try to control the network in some way. But no state or group of states have the computational ability at this point to attack Bitcoin that's running at 150 quintillion calculations per second. There's simply no system in the world that's anywhere near this. And there's another factor here, which is, I think, plays into this idea that gold bugs have, where gold is physical and I can hold it, and Bitcoin is not. And so, therefore, I can't really accept it.
Sure.
One thing to keep in mind is with Bitcoin, there is, you could say, a physical element to it, because the encrypted shield that keeps the Bitcoin community separated from the state is impenetrable. Essentially, when you're in the Bitcoin network, when we're transacting in Bitcoin, and we don't need permission, we don't need a bank, we don't need an intermediary, we can transact. Any two individuals on planet Earth can transact without any interruption. No state, no bank. And there's no ability by any outside force to stop that, because the encrypted shield that protects the network is impenetrable for what I just mentioned. So to that degree, it's physical in that sense, if you can think of it in terms of it has a physical attribute, just as a brick wall would be. You could not run through a brick wall. There's the physical object in your way. You cannot penetrate or pierce the encrypted shield that keeps the Bitcoin network free from the state. So that's like a wall. So you can't break it. So I think gold bugs, if they have that, if they think about it in those terms, they can migrate over from gold and start to see Bitcoin and understand the Bitcoin use case and the Bitcoin value proposition. And you get more of the gold crowd into Bitcoin.
I agree. And thanks for that. And so, and yeah, the tangible element, doesn't bother me so much, or never really has, I guess, because, we're a technology driven species at this point, and you can look at a 5,000-year history relying on an asset, but so much has changed in the last 100 years that we could, I don't know how relevant it is anymore. So I want to follow up with a question there, and I guess keep in mind that my understanding of Bitcoin, I would call juvenile, right? I dollar cost average into Bitcoin and Ethereum pretty much. And then I play in the capital markets opportunities a little bit as a wealth creation exercise, companies that are leveraged to the crypto price. When I ask about the state and Bitcoin, I guess where my mind is at, and explain to me how this is wrong, is not so much that the state gets involved in Bitcoin, but the state shifts to those who hold the most Bitcoin. If we're talking about a finite number of coins, and there's a small population of people that, like yourself, that you were a decade ago talking about why this had utility and why people should pay attention, and started building an allocation. My next door neighbor isn't going to turn his head until the price is 100,000, 150,000, and then he's purchasing the same asset at a vastly inflated price. Will never have anywhere close to the quantity. And so could we end up with a very small population that controls 90% of the value, and that essentially becomes the state in some way? Well,
I think the state, there's a game theory layer baked into the Bitcoin protocol. And we want the states to try to get involved. And we want the sovereign wealth funds. And we want the hedge funds. And we want the Michael Saylors. And we want the private corporations. And we want the balance sheets. And we want Elon Musk. And we want Jeff Bezos. Because the more people come into Bitcoin, the hash rate goes up, the security goes up, and the price goes up. So we want everybody in the world, every government, every sovereign wealth fund, every money manager, every household to buy Bitcoin and to enjoy the price appreciation going forward. You do have now that transitionary period that will come from Bitcoin as a store of value, where it is now, to becoming a medium of exchange. And that's happening quite rapidly. And I think it'll start to push aside other payment rails in the next couple of years to unit of account. So we are heading to a world that things are priced in Bitcoin. And so any amount of Bitcoin will be needed if you want to participate in the global economy.
I would follow up with that. And I would say that a few things. First of all, regarding your previous question to Max, is that when you separate a state from money, the previous moment, revolutionary moment like that, was when we separated church from state. And that was something that also broke thousands of years of human behavior. There were these divine people that God himself appointed to lead over us, rule over us. And something snapped that we attacked these people, beheaded them in France, and just like, that is a huge break that you can never go back. France will never have a king again because they've already beheaded it, because they've already said there is no divine individual. We all have human rights. We all have the same natural law applied to us. Well, the same thing happens when we broke this connection between money and state. Now, I think originally, like when we first started using gold as money, there was no centralizing state around money. And I think it slowly happened because humans didn't understand what they had with gold for thousands of years. The age of Medici was an amazing period of time when the state had to come to the Medicis. They had to come to the people with gold and beg them to finance their wars. Mm-hmm. And then soon after the age of Medici, the Renaissance, then the state started with the Bank of Amsterdam to start grabbing people's gold, convincing them. They didn't steal it at first. They just convinced them to give it to them, and they would give them these bonds or credit instead. But that was a mistake. And now we have Bitcoin. So we can move on from that. Now, in terms of power, there is no central authority in Bitcoin. Even the whales, even those people with lots of Bitcoin, we proved that in 2017 with the fork wars. The giants, the whales, the corporations, the powerful, you would think, powerful individuals in Bitcoin tried to hard fork Bitcoin to, something that the users, the little minnows of Bitcoin, did not want. And the minnows won because they were more than, just even by having like a fraction of a Bitcoin versus the guys with tens of thousands of Bitcoin. There was nothing that they could do because of the amount of users all around the world that decided they didn't want what the whales wanted.
Right. Plus, as you move into an era of Bitcoin as unit of account, those holding large amounts of Bitcoin will start to circulate those Bitcoin because everything will be priced in Bitcoin.